Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the podcast on the Sicha for Project Likkutei Sichos, where we unpack a weekly Sicha of the Rebbe and bring its lessons into our real life. I'm Rabbi Shmuli Nachlas from Toronto, Canada. I'm joined by my good friends, Rabbi Yisroel Wilhelm in Boulder, Colorado, and Rabbi Moshe Gourarie from Toms River, New Jersey. Today, we're going to be discussing, unpacking, and learning the Sicha from Chelek Chaf Vav, the Sicha of Teruma Aleph. And just to jump in to the Sicha and some of the themes that we're going to be covering, when a person goes to define themselves, you could ask yourself, how am I different? There's 8 billion people in the world. Am I different because I'm different? Because I try and do something different? I put on a funny hat. I wear certain things. I'm trying to make a little bit of a differentiation. Or is it my attitude to be a better person? This conversation starts in connection to the donations and the funds and the money and the resources in relating to building the Beis HaMikdash, to building the Mishkan. And it also is a question about, when something is already holy and something's already special, it's already designated, it's donated funds, it's already sort of sacrificial and made holy and given to Hashem. What could you do at that point? Is it to make it any different, to bring it to another level, or is it already done? Is your deed done? Are you finished? And this really translates into our personal lives. It translates into our Avodas Hashem, in the way we conduct ourselves, in the different levels of interconnection to spirituality, to Kedusha. But let's wind back and understand how we get there. So Moshe, set the table for us. Let's go.
Thank you, Shmuli. Sorry. Actually, the Sicha does not begin about the donations at all. The Sicha begins with V'asuli Migdash V'shachanti V'seicham, which is about the building, the structuring of the Mishkan. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this in one of my shiurim. I said that I think V'asuli Migdash V'shachanti V'seicham is one of the most famous psukim in all of the Rebbe's, throughout the Rebbe's Torah. Maybe V'yahavta l'reacha kamocha is higher, is more, but in this specific Sicha, the Rebbe focuses on the words Li and Mikdash, where Rashi says Li Lishmi, that it should be built for the sake of my name, and that Mikdash means Beis Kedusha or Bayis Kedosha, a holy house. And in short, the Rebbe explains that the idea of building the Mishkan, Hashem wanted that not just to create a structure that would contain holiness in it, but that the structure itself should be holy. And therefore, even though it already says Lishmi, for the sake of my name, earlier when Hashem asks for the donations of the Mikdash, nevertheless it says Lishmi again, because now we're going to the next level. When Hashem asked for the donations, he was asking for them to be given for the sake of my name, to have in mind that I'm doing this, that this is being done for the sake of Hashem. But when it came to the Asuli Mikdash, Hashem wanted something else, not just to be given a donation, but Hashem wanted that the building itself, the physical materials itself, should be transformed and become holy. And for that, another level of lishmi is needed, another level of dedication, another level of having in mind that this is for the sake of Hashem. And with this, the Rebbe, in very short, explains this Rashi. V'asu li mikdash, v'asu lishmi. The entire building of it should be for the sake of my name, because the purpose of the building is bayis kedosha, that the house, the material itself, should be holy. Now, with this, the Rebbe goes to another level to explain the difference between the first lishmi and the second lishmi. And for that, I'll turn to one of you to take it from here.
Shmuli, you continue. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, really, this is we're starting to get into the sort of the nitty gritty of when we're doing something lishmi, which means for the sake of Hashem. There's two levels that the Rebbe talks about. sort of divides it into these two stages. The first one is the idea of taking your mundane life, the things that are simple to you, the things that are business to you, and taking and separating. When the Rebbe quotes the words of Onkelos of afrushusa, to separate. It's almost like the way I said, like afrashas challah. You have a big pile of dough, and you take a piece away from it. What's the difference between this piece that you took and all the dough that's sitting there on the table? There's no difference. The only difference is that you differentiated it and you made a difference and you separated it out. Or if you made $100 and you took $10 out of the $100 into your pocket, and you took it and you put it into the tzedakah box, what's the difference between the $10 that's in the tzedakah box and the other $10 bills that are in your pocket? They're all $10 bills. There's no difference. The difference is really, where is it sitting now? It's not sitting in your pocket, and you separate it out and you put it into the tzedakah box in the shul, right? So that's sort of step one of lishmi. Lishmi is you're doing something for Hashem. You're doing something for the sake of.
You write out the check.
You write out the check. You made the donation. You did you did what you had to do. You did, whether it's financially or whatever it may be. But the second level that the Rebbe is talking about here is, in the terminology of the Sicha, is ufheben, is harama, truma from the word of harama, to lift it up. And this is really, I guess, in classic. The Rebbe's style is to say it's not enough. The donation is not enough. It's the commitment we're looking for. Like the famous. It's more. There's more than just that deed. I guess just before we get deeper into that and what that means, it's again reaching into a deeper perspective in our Avodas Hashem, in our spiritual journey, in who we are, in our entire Yiddishkeit. Are we focused on the deeds as cold actions, differentiating us and saying, this is how I'm different? Or are we looking deeper into what does that relationship mean and what does that do to me? How does that change me as a person? What's supposed to happen here? Okay, you want the check, Rabbi? You got the check. Okay, so now what? Could I leave your office now? And the answer is no, of course. What's supposed to happen now? Right, so that's the second level, the ufheben, the harama. But let's break it down.
Yeah, I actually like what Moshe said over here, how this also the Midrash Shanti B'Seicham is like one of the, every single Lubavitcher knows, B'Seichel and B'Seichel, right? The idea that this is the temple for Dir B'Tachtonim, Basi Legani, etc. There's so much about it. So from this Sicha's perspective, if we can bring a little bit about what's the template for what Hashem wants from us, Dir B'Tachtonim, to make this world into His home, and it's not just enough to cut out, as you said, part of your day, and you have a schedule, and I'm giving Teruma, and part of the day I'm going to do my Yiddishkeit, and the other part of the day I'll do whatever else I do, versus Harama, literally living in a mind space or in an area where you are entirely uplifted and being, a dir b'tachtonim, making this place into Hashem's world is a mission. It's a full-time job. It's not like there's no cutout time that when I am on and when I'm off. Harama, as you said, Shmuli, so well, it's not about writing the check. Not about just I go to shul. I learn with the rabbi. I learn this in the morning, but then the rest of the day, it's something else. Harama, the whole purpose of what's happening here is to literally be uplifted. So Ufay ben Zich. Moshe, what do you think?
The way Shmuli was talking before, and it seemed like he was about to say a story or a mashal, and I don't know if this is the mashal, but my father has a very classic mashal he fabrengens about all the time. Anybody that went through his fabrengen would be familiar with it, of the chicken and the pig. The chicken and the pig are strolling down the street one morning, and they see the restaurant is advertising bacon and eggs for breakfast. So the chicken says to the pig, "Look at us! We're providing breakfast for people. We're heroes." So the pig says to the chicken, "Don't compare yourself to me. From you, they're asking a donation." And from me, they're asking for my life. In other words, the chicken, he lays an egg, and life goes on. I know we shouldn't be a davar acher, we shouldn't bring it up, but for the sake of the muscle, to provide what he is providing, he has to literally give up his life. And I think that this is, you use the word template, I think this is a good starting point to be able to differentiate between two attitudes in Avodas Hashem, where you have someone that is contributing, and again we keep on going to the check. It's not just about contributing money. It's like you said before, it's a schedule thing. Even a person who shows up to Shachris, to Mincha, to Mari, he davens the minyan 3 times a day, but it's a checklist item. I did it. I could check it off. I can go back to my life. And then there's a yid that whatever happens is my life. Every part of the day, meaning that my life is for Hashem.
Yeah, I think it's really a question of is it who am I, or is it what do I do?
Excellent. Yes,
I think
exactly.
that's the quick summary of the situation, and we can apply it to our own lives. We could talk about other people. We can talk about ourselves. In the world of shlichus or mevtzayim, you could say, look, you put tefillin on a yid, or you put a mezuzah up on a door, and these are beautiful. It's the first step in Teruma. It is hafrasha. You made this house a house that is different. There's a mezuzah up on a door, or a mitzvah is being done, or a Shabbos meal, or Shabbos candles are being lit, and that is a Teruma. That is fantastic. That is amazing. But that's not living like a Jew is supposed to live. That's not the ultimate goal of how this is supposed to work. And just to break it down into the back to the Sicha just for a second, so we don't get totally lost. When those beams are taken and they're used to build the Mishkan, you're taking it a step further. You're taking and you're using those funds and you're elevating them, like Moshe said before, into becoming something of holiness. And the way I digest that in my head, using an example, it's not brought down in the Sicha, but just like the way I see that is like if you a Sefer Torah, right? You took a piece of leather and now it's a davar shebekudusha. It is actually holiness, a mezuzah or whatever, something that becomes kedusha. So you may have given $1 towards it, but now when that leather, or you may have even donated the leather, let's just say, and now the leather becomes a Torah. That now we're talking about a whole level of holiness. So that's something we can relate to at a practical level. When the beam is going to build the Jewish center, when the beam is going to build the Mishkan, now you've taken that metal crossbeam and you've turned it into a holy crossbeam. You turned it into something which is actually something which is kedusha. So that's back to the original structuring of where the Rebbe is talking about these 2 levels. Is in building this structure. There's the actually taking that, separating from yourself and giving it in to Hektish, making it part of the campaign, so to speak. And then what happens to it is the next thing.
I really think we should on page 173 focus on those 2 little paragraphs on the top right and learn it together over here and see what this means in our life. Hafrasha meint as die Sache ist bloß abgeschät geworden von anderen Sachen. Hafrasha means that it's separated from something else. Das heißt, b'mehusa, in its essence, is verblieben in demselben Gede wie andere Sachen. Hasn't really changed. It went from place A to place B. I feel funny over here. Moshe is usually the teacher of the Sicha over here. But anyway, I'm taking the job. The Chiluk zwischen Zeh is not an Indian from Shinui Mokim Rishus. It's just the location has changed. Right? As we know, the famous joke of the rabbi says the good news and the bad news, right? The good news is we have all the money for the building. The bad news is it's in your pocket, right? So it's coming out of your pocket to fund. It's changed location. When you say uplift, that's an essential change. Die Sache is aufgehoben geworden. Now it's what's aufgehoben? It's uplifted, right? I can say transformed. Changed, elevated. She is a hechere ortu madrega, right? It's a different location. It's not just in a different place. It's a different level. Azoy as hat nit kin sheiches mit dem Ort Meile und die Sachen zwischen welches is free geworden has no connection to the place it was before. Most of this reminds me a lot of the Yisroel Wilhelm Sicha, the one that we love so much. Shemati Torah of Yisroel Wilhelm. right? That it's not enough to learn Torah. The Rebbe points out is that when you learn Torah and you literally get uplifted, it's not just have a class every day that I schedule for an hour and the rest of the day is different. When you learn Torah the right way, then you can actually, it just changes your whole life. It's a different experience. Moshe, that's what bringing about these two little things over here.
Okay, so I think that we're discussing it and trying to make it practical, and I think as you were talking, I think there's two practical roads to take here. Number one, in the person's attitude. In other words, how do I feel about whatever it is that I'm doing? And obviously the point is I have to feel in a way of harama, which I'll get to in a moment. And then I think we should also focus on sometimes practical things that we could do in our life that actually change even a Jewish thing that we're doing, but to make it not just Jewish, but to make it holy and to make it ufgeheben. And to go back to the first point, there's a well-known Sicha in Chelek Aleph on the pasuk Hoysa li dimasi lechem yemam v'loyla be'emorei lai kol hayom ayeh lekecha. My tears were my sustenance day and night when it was said to me all day, where's your God? The simple verse is the meaning of the verse of the pasuk is David HaMelech saying that his adversaries would torment him and say all day they would torment him and say, where's your God? Look at this, your God is in hiding. The Rebbe teaches that a person has to a whole day. You have to ask yourself, where is my Hashem? You know, the old-fashioned model of the person that davens in the morning and then folds up his yarmulke with his talis and then goes into the street. It goes into out into the world, you know, with a suit and a tie, and you can't even tell that a few minutes ago he was in shul davening. And I do my thing. I go to shul, and that's what I have to do. And the rest of the day, I'm killing it, you know, in the business world. And kol hayom ayeh lekecha is pshat that your entire day, every aspect of your day has to be permeated with the same chayis and gishmak and connection of davening. In other words, a yid is by definition separated. Because I daven in the morning, because I do Torah mitzvahs, I'm by definition separated. But the question is, am I uplifted? Am I different? Am I different in the way that even when I'm on the business world, when I'm working, when I'm doing what I have to do, that there's something in the way I see myself and the way I act and the way why am I making this money? What is it for? What's going to happen with it? Why am I even here? That there's something different about me, even in the physical parts of my life, that my every dollar that I make, it's a holy dollar, not just a Jewish dollar. I'll let you continue from this, and then I'll go to the practical at some point.
Yeah, Moshe, that was a great breakdown. I think that there's also another aspect here that when we talk about those deeds that we do, they're very much in our control and sort of part of our psyche, part of our persona of who I am. You know, I have my shir in the morning, and I have my, you know, this is my time for this, and I have my things, and everybody has their, you know, so it's sort of like your differentiation. You know, who are you? What do you do? What do you know? So that's how you make yourself different. You know, I wanted me to tell you what I do and all these things about how I do and what I do. That's my differentiation. It makes me into my identity. It makes me into who I am versus who you are. And we all have these things, and we're talking about even all good things. And I think there's another aspect here, and it's really saying the same thing, just with different words, I guess, is that those actions are still within your control. They're still connected to you, and the Rebbe is saying that they're still connected to you to the point that the Rebbe has to say. So then, what's the difference? Then how did they leave you? Then how are they different than what's happened? And using the example of money, just because that's what we're talking about, is okay. So they were separated from here, and they're over there now. But really, you know, it's almost hard to see that difference. You know what happened here. But talking about it a step further, what we're saying here is that so long as you keep those deeds connected to you, you're limiting them to yourself. You're limiting them to yourself, and they're being mafresh from what you separated them from. and they're still associated to that. And they're very limited in their capacity and their growth. The moment that you release them from yourself and the inhibitions of yourself and the limitations of yourself, and not degrading anybody, chas v'shalom, but at the end of the day, we're all very finite and we're all very limited in our capacities. So if you want to be able to go beyond yourself, you got to let go of those things and let them soar on their own. Let them go. And I think that's really about the harama is when the thing could fly. You let the bird fly and you let it out of the cage. It's your bird, but you put, and you let it go. And now all of a sudden you could go to heights that are beyond anything you ever imagined. And the same is, I just want to bring it right back in while we're talking about this to relationships and mitzvahs between people as well, because it's all Avodas Hashem is all one big story, is when you have an influence on somebody, when you affect somebody, when you get someone to do a mitzvah, that's wonderful, right? Or yourself. But when you go beyond that, when you let them go, when you lift them up, when you let them fly, they're going to go far beyond what you could ever imagine. They're going to go flying far places. So there's sort of like a line here in between when you're interconnected to the transaction or when you let it go. Something just quickly comes to my mind about donations, because we're talking about donations. I don't know how the laws in the US, but I imagine they're probably somewhat similar, but without quoting the actual legality of it, but there's something to the idea that when you give a donation in Canada to a charity, you could have a little bit of say sort of in the general direction, obviously where you're putting it or what organization you're giving it to, of course. And even within an organization, I could say I want it to go to education, or I want it to go to, to your sports scholarship or whatever it may be. But within that, you have to let go. You're not allowed to. It's actually against the law to control that donation once it's left your hand. You have to let the ones that are entrusted to lift it up to the next level. It's got to be lifted up. It's got to be removed from your capacity, even within a scholarship fund. Let's just say I want it to go to that student. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to be separated. I just find it interesting. You need to separate yourself from that and let go and let it fly, and let it achieve what it could achieve beyond your capacity. Anyway, I divert a little. Go ahead.
You reminded me when I moved to Boulder many years ago, a lot of hippies over here in town, and we used to ask them, "What do you do? What do you do?" And the answer was always, "I exist." So we say, "What do you mean you exist? How do you make parnas? How do you live? Like what do you do? What do you do from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day?" I exist. And after pushing, I mean, how do I spend my time? I spend my time usually in the same store. There's always one in the co-op. There's one. Every hippie worked in the co-op in Boulder. But there's something to learn from that. We spend, even, I'm not talking about what do we do, like they were talking about in terms of like I go to work, but what do we do? We think like, how did we fill our day? Did we fill our day doing this? Did we do that? Was I a good father? Was I around for this person? Did I learn? Did I do whatever it was? How did I daven? Whatever you're dealing with that day, but that's what you do. But who are we? Harama, I like what you said, is another perspective. It's not from your lens. It's giving the ability to fly high. The Rebbe spoke multiple times how every yid's a shliach, right? Every yid is on a mission, is uplifted to make this world a better place, to make the world a better place. And it's very different than like, what do I do? Okay, I happen to do this. Every person happens to do something else. But I like that idea. It's not from what you are experiencing. It's from what is the being connected to the much higher mission on hand.
So I think to go to just bring it down a little bit practical, and with that I'll begin the conclusionary remarks. I think it's very important to focus on a line in the Sicha, where on the last page, where he says that the idea of harama says nishta kain in yonei chayil in dem bayis. The house doesn't contain something that isn't holy, that's mundane. It's actually similar to what we spoke about in the concept of shibud. that the difference between an eved and a shibud is that shibud means that the entire person is dedicated to Hashem. And on a very practical note, talking about a house looking different, you walk into a house that's owned by a frum yid, you could tell that it's a frum house. There's two sinks in the kitchen. There's svarim on the wall. There's a pushkin hanging on the wall of the kitchen. You could walk in, you could tell this is a frum house. I joke in Tom's River that if you walk in and you see 3-4 bedrooms, it wasn't built by a frum person. If you see 7-8 bedrooms, you know that it was built for a frum family. So the house looks different. The house automatically looks like a Yiddish shtub, but it doesn't mean that as nishtakin in yon chel babayis. And we were thinking about this, and I said when the father comes home from work and the family is eating supper, what's he passionate about? The deal he made, the sports team that he's into, or a psavort that he just learned on Likkutei Sichos, that's like a shmake vort. He chapped it on the drive home. He listened to a shir, and he's excited about it. The kids will know. The house will know what makes this guy's heart beat. The father, the mother, the kids. I said maybe say Advar Torah by the Shabbos by the supper table. Each kid a story or something. So even a supper is a Jewish thing. It's kosher. You're making a bracha on it. It's different than the supper of the house next door. That's not a Jewish house. But it doesn't mean that it's ufgeheben. But where does the passion lie? Where does and not only that, sometimes we have to actually do something, especially when we're talking about our kids. Our kids that are so much, they're guided not just by what we're passionate about, but also what we implement. They have to know that what's really important to us. Where is our passion? What are we? What are we? Like what we do, what we are. Yeah, I might go to work. I might do regular things like everyone else. But who am I? I'm a Yid. I'm a Chassid of the Rebbe. I'm alive. And then we could make sure as nishtakin in their bias.
Yisroel, final thoughts?
Yeah, I love what you said. I'm just going to make it personal to my life because I don't live in Tom's River. I live in Boulder, Colorado. And like sometimes I was driving with my kids, we talk about, let's say, a Wachnacht. And then I realized my kids have no idea what a Wachnacht is. They just have no idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, like they just, the classic...
Say what it is for those who are watching. And
the night before a bris, you come together and you say psukim and you with the baby, right? The last time I was in a Wachnach, I was, I don't know, my own kids, myself over here. I'm saying there's no hafrasha. I try. It's very well. You're helping me here. There's no hafrasha. There's no separation of the classic frum time that my kids don't experience here. They don't get to go to weddings and simchas and l'chaim. There's just that whole, or even, a minyan every day or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Like there just isn't the classic frum lifestyle that we talk about. So, and sometimes like I think about it, like, so like what do my kids think Shabbos is versus if you would, maybe live somewhere else. But hopefully, not on my merit, but on the Rebbe's merit, there's harama. They're appreciating that life's not about themselves. They're learning lessons here that they can't learn in Tom's River in a certain level. And I don't say you could learn it anywhere, but I'm saying on an easy way. They're being forced to learn that Abbas Yisrael is really about, from the youngest age, about accepting the fact that every Yid can come to your Shabbos table, no matter what they look like, no matter if they're using their phone, no matter, it's not, and somehow in their minds, they're able to not, it's always shocking to me, right? We try to protect our kids, and yet here, when you're sort of relying on this higher attitude, if I may say, it's not maischos, the shluchos that we were given, the Teruma might be weak, the actual technical thing might be weak. The hafrasha might be weak, but hopefully they're learning through the merit of being over here and something way different, a whole lifestyle of hafrasha. Anyway, let's just thank you for bringing that up.
I think Yisroel, it's synonymous with you. Anybody who knows you. You're never walking straight. You're always skipping and jumping. And so you jumped over step one. You just jumped straight to step two, and that was it. But actually, it's a beautiful thing what you're saying. And I think that you touched on something interesting that in the world of hafrasha, in the world of separation and differentiation, you could get very nervous. I'm trying to be different, and that person is not different like me. How could we coexist? How could we sit at a table with someone who has their phone on, like you say? How could I interact with someone who's not kosher? How could all these big problematic issues in the world of Hafrasha? But when you step out of that world and you go into the world of Arama, it's not so far from you, and these issues just fall to the wayside. It's very, very beautiful how you. Anyway, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
No, Moshe was speaking
You're
about.
in Boulder. You're in Boulder for a reason.
No, because I'll be honest. Like it's something that sometimes I think about the way I grew up in just a regular frum community, and I like my kids are not young; they're older kids, and they like some basic things. I'm like, and meanwhile. We can start a whole farbrengen now, but Moshe just touched on it, and that's what, and thank you, Shmuli, for saying that, about the harama attitude. When you live in a certain, you can sort of, you don't need to get technical over all the small things.
Right.
It's fascinating. Shmuli, I just gonna one line. I'd say it's fascinating how one inyan in a Sicha, it'll apply to each person in their makim, in their life situation, and it's hakol. But each person is able to draw it down in their own life circumstance. It's just fascinating. Go ahead.
So I just want to finish up over here, just to pick up on one final thing that you talked about, Moshe, and just to put it into other ICS, and that is regarding the home, because the Rebbe does emphasize the bias, the home, and the Rebbe applies it to our home. Like Yisroel said, we were talking about it's our home, our place, our home. And the word that comes to mind for me is vibe. The word vibe is a very popular word. What's the vibe? So when you walk into a home, and like Moshe, you mentioned so well, is sports. Sports is a lot of fun. We all love playing sports, watch a sports game once in a while, whatever it is. It's entertainment. But is it all consuming? Is that the home is a sports? Like seriously? Or politics? Politics today, like Gesundheit hate, of course, it's important, and the right politicians have to be in the right places and do the right things, and 100%. But what's the vibe in the home? What do we kochen? What do we talk? What do we really care about? Of course, you talk about this and that, and it's all true. But when you walk into that home, what's the vibe? What's the energy? What's the vibe? What's going on? Is there lashon hara talking about the principles and this guy's a horrible, this one, that one at the table, or are those things off the table and the energy is a little bit of Narishka had to come up, whatever, but the energy is positive. It's this. So I want to conclude with one thing, because you at the end of the day, it's all good talk, but how do you get it done? How do you do it? How do you get to Harama?
Learn Likkutei Sichos.
Either you move to Boulder, or I was just going to say,
in Boulder you have to learn Likkutei Sichos.
You have to learn. But I'm just going to make a plug, but I'm going to say the truth as it really is, that if you want to, at least for me, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the boys, if you want to get to that state of Harama, at least in the state of mind, and then, because we're not perfect, and there's a lot going on in the world, and how to have that focus, and how to bring that energy, and how to create that vibe around you that's felt by everybody. Project Likkutei Sichos, baby.
So lamadati Torah
v'nisrei mamti. Beautiful.
There we go.
Beautiful.
A wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.